Hey everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. Today we are going to be working on some collage mixed media Christmas ornaments and Nutcracker candlesticks. These are items that I had on hand or that I thrifted. And in my last video where I did a ton of DIY Christmas related projects, I get started on these and that video got so big that I was running out of time and I thought, let's go ahead and break this off and make this a collage Christmas special. If you're looking for more collage, mixed media type Christmas content, go ahead and check out that last video where I made these wood block ornaments. Love how those turned out. And now we're gonna continue this process and finish up the candlesticks and the additional wood ornaments. Can't wait to get started. Let's jump on in. Okay, so just to get you up to speed here, last week when I was working on the other DIY Christmas projects, I started working on these as well. When I pulled out the stain for the wood blocks, I also did a little bit of stain in a couple different colors on some of the wood ornaments. It was really hard to get the details right on these, so the stain job is a little bit messy, but we're gonna be layering up some paint and other things to cover that up. I also went in on the ornaments and on the nutcrackers with this Banana Republic tissue paper that I had on hand. You know I can never throw anything away, and I thought the print on this paper was amazing. And so I started applying that to all of the pieces, really trying to get the paper saturated with the Mod Podge so that the white paper would become pretty transparent and allow just the black patterns to show up, kind of like a temporary tattoo kind of effect. I wasn't totally successful in saturating the paper, so you still see a little bit of that white cast on these. But I think when I start going in with some paint and some water on these, it'll kind of help saturate them even more and kind of blend that to fade it out. Where things really started to get exciting for me was taking some of the offcuts of my dictionary pages. In the last video, I made some origami stars out of some of the pages from my vintage 50s dictionary. And I kept all of the offcuts of those pages just in case. And I found it was nice to tear these up and get little bits and pieces of words coming in on these ornaments. Let me show you what we're looking at here. So this paper tore really beautifully, and I found that it was a good way just to add some kind of texture and layers in different areas. But I also thought it was fun to see kind of what words I had on hand. Again, I didn't really choose these words specifically. These were cutoffs from my origami star pages. But it was fun to see what kind of words I just happened upon and to choose the ones that felt most appropriate for these pieces. Especially on this one here, I think I'm gonna do kind of a fun take on the to from thing and have it be like a verb: to experiment, to annotate, to diverge, which feels very on brand for the reissued thing. So I think I might do my reissued stamp down here at the bottom in the little from area. When the words came into play, this was the point in the process where I was like really trying to get the video out, and I was like, this is such a cool thing and I don't wanna rush it. So this is where I decided to make this its own dedicated video so that we can really take the time to use the words in a cool way, give these a nice paint job, really layer them up even more and make them feel really special. And so I think my next step here is to go in one more time with my Mod Podge, adding in some of my vintage patterns. These were old wrapping tissue papers that I had on hand that might be fun to add onto the nutcrackers for some color and texture. And then this one particular magazine page I've been really drawn to for the patterns up here. So I may be adding in some of this. It might be too much, so maybe not, but I pulled that out just in case. As usual, I love to work on multiple projects at once so that I can bounce back and forth while waiting for things to dry. So we're gonna jump from nutcrackers to wood ornaments a lot this time. I start by applying some of the red polka dot and turquoise tissue papers to the nutcrackers with my beloved Mod Podge. I'm just filling in any blank areas on the red sections and adding a bit of dimension to the blue sections. The tissue paper effect on the nutcrackers ends up being super subtle in the end, but I know it's there, and now you do too. On the wood ornaments, I glue the dictionary scraps and add some of the magazine page for a bit of pattern. I'm opting to keep these super monochromatic, so the more texture and pattern I can add, the better. I also layer in a bit of my clothing pattern paper for the warm amber color and the broken lines. After a bit of experimenting on the nutcrackers off camera, I found a good flow. I add multiple shades of blues, pinks, purples, and reds, watering down the paint a lot so that it would coat the whole piece pretty transparently, with the paint mostly setting into all of the little lines and sculptural details. This was a great way to shift the colors to a more fun and contemporary palette, add depth and painterly quality, and enhance the features of the sculpt. It looks pretty messy and flat right now, but laying down these undertones makes a big difference in the end. This time I'm using mostly craft paint. I don't tend to do this on my paintings. I tend to work with something a little bit more high quality, like a Liquitex Basic or a Liquitex Heavy Body. But on these, I have a lot of craft paint on hand. I feel like we are crafting, so this is the time to use it. And that's also gonna give me some more saturated pre-mixed colors. Not sure how that's gonna work out, but let's give that a try today. As those dried, I did what I often do on my paintings and washed the wood ornaments with super watered down Liquitex Basics in burnt umber. This brown shade offers a bit of dimension and an aged look, kind of like a tea stain effect. I blot off most of the paint here and play around with applying the paint more strategically in certain areas to offer definition and dimension to the designs. Let's go ahead and apply that same paint to the Nutcrackers. Trust me on this, it looks super muddy at first, but once the paint seeps into the cracks and grooves a bit, and once I wipe the paint off the high points, this gives more of a vintage, aged look and unifies and subdues the bold colors just a bit. And why don't we go ahead and add the reissued stamp to the wood tag ornament. This is the iconic stamp that I've used on the back of all of my art cards and in my clothing labels, as well as in the shaky intro that I filmed back in my apartment ages ago. Getting the placement right here feels a little scary since I only get one shot, and since I can't really see where it's gonna go. But I've stamped this thing enough to have a pretty good idea about where it's gonna land, so here goes nothing. And it looks perfect. Whew, that's a relief. Now that our lowlights and shadows have dried on the Nutcrackers, we can go in with the highlights. Whereas the wash technique to get into the cracks involved a super wet, watery application, we want a really dry brush for the highlights, so that we only hit the high points and don't push any paint into the cracks. I start with bright reds and blues to reintroduce the original colors of the pieces. I augment these with more teal and pink tones for variation and a little more punch. Next, I mix up a dirty white by adding some yellow and black into the white, and brush that onto the beard and hair. The weird yellowy shade of the hair on the original pieces was unsettling to me, and I'd like my version to have white hair, but with all of the subtle shifts to blue and pink, of course. This is the point in the process where it all starts to come together, and the muddy midtones and shadows start to make sense. Next, I redefine the black and green areas and dry brush a bit of gold on the bases. And finally, I add details and accents with my favorite liquid gold leaf paint. This just gives a little pop to all the gold areas on the Nutcrackers and adds one more layer of contrast. And on the wood ornaments, I use it to outline, define, and embellish certain areas. I especially love doing line work with this paint since it's oil-based and has such a nice glide. Once all of the paint dries, I can sign and date these. Someone commented on my last video and suggested that I always sign and date my work so that there's a record of my creation process. And I love this idea, especially with my focus on crafting an heirloom Christmas collection that feels storied and special and can be passed down for generations. Let's spray them with an acrylic sealant to lock everything in and even out the finish. And we're done. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed this casual conclusion to my 2023 A Reissued Christmas series. In case you missed any of the Christmas videos so far, I'm going to compile those all into their own playlist and drop that down below. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, and if you want to see more from me, go ahead and subscribe. Merry Christmas, thank you so much for watching, I'll see you guys soon.